as we now welcome to Africa at Play, one of the tallest basketball players I've ever seen on earth. And I'm talking about David Craig, who used to play for MBB for his debut Basketball Africa League performance. And he's done superbly well. And guess what? He's now joined the Johannesburg Giants. And this is a gentleman who left South Africa during his teen ages, going to the United States of America to take his game of basketball to another level. Craig, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to Africa at Play.
Man, thank you for having me. Very blessed to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, just very excited for everything that's about to start happening. And it's so interesting because, you know, so many things can happen, so many things can unfold. And this is something that's so new to basketball in South Africa, you know, now that this is our second time around hosting, but also hosting as a more localized team versus Cape Town Tigers, obviously based in Cape Town, but moved to Johannesburg. Us being a Johannesburg team playing in Pretoria, obviously it's a lot more familiarity. So, man, there's no telling what can happen. The sky's the limit.
Exciting indeed. The sky is the limit. And I always say that the sky is not even the limit because, you know, it depends how much you want it. You can keep going and going and going. I don't think there's a cul-de-sac when it comes to ambitions. Let's get on to it. I want to start with something interesting. Your height, 7 feet 3 inches. That is equivalent to 2.21 meters.
Yes.
That's a tall man right there.
Yeah.
How do people welcome you in different scenes?
Oh, it's funny because it varies so much. I think that's one of the things that really comes to love about South Africa is because it's so embracing here. Basically, everywhere I go, people, you know, they just automatically drawn to me, but it's in a way where there's still a level of respect and there's a level of just genuine, like fascination to things. So majority of the time, that's what it is. Some circles, if it's a little bit more masculine and competitive, like a basketball circle, you know, guys will look me more up and down and, you know, try to size me up a bit and, you know, try to see how they measure up to me. Other circles, you know, sometimes it's a bit shocking, you know, there's a level of intimidation. So it really just depends, you know, it varies so much. It's hard to pinpoint it to one exact thing.
You were announced as the tallest basketball player during Basketball Africa League BAL Season 5 that happened in 2025 when you represented MBB. Does that come with any extra edge as a basketball player when you are that tall?
Yes, I think it would be very hard if you are breaking a record in something to then not have the pressure of performing. You know, you can't be an extreme in one area and then not expect it to be expectations of extremes in the others. And so there's definitely an edge just in the sense of like, yes, I know what I'm capable of. I know where I stand with other people. But then at the same time, everybody else now, because they don't understand my experience the way I do, generally that means that they lean towards more of expecting more from me than they do the average person, if that makes sense.
Exciting indeed. Let's go back to David Craig as a young boy, primary school days. Usually at that age, for any kid, it is normal to try out different sporting codes, especially with the high school and primary school season, having different seasons. It's either hockey season, cricket season, rugby season, that kind of vibe. What sort of sporting codes did you try during your early days?
I tried a lot. So the main sport that I loved as a child was rugby. You know, this is before I really hit a major growth spurt. So, you know, obviously physically, it was a bit different for me. I was a flank. I played eighth man a bit as well. So that was my main sport. But then I also played cricket. I also played tennis and I played squash. Those 4 sports were kind of my main sports. I obviously dabbled in cross country a bit, did long jump, high jump, all that other stuff. So, I mean, I was really across the board as a child. You know, there was a lot of things that really caught my eye.
And how did basketball overtake all of these, because now it has become your first love?
Well, I think basketball was so far out of what was traditional at that time. You know, South African kid growing up and you want to be sportsy, you know, the sports that I was playing are the sports that were, you know, there and already had structure and already had all these different levels that you go through. You know, basketball was something that was just so new and fascinating. I think for me, what really drew me to it was just how natural I felt playing it and how much fun I had in a way that was so much more freeing than other sports. And, you know, when you have that when you have that fascination as a kid, generally speaking, there's not a lot of situations that you can get put in where you can kind of just grow that freely, without dealing with so many repercussions. But basketball allowed that for me. And so once that kind of took off and I started becoming more and more competitive at it, that's when I really started training and I started really, pushing that.
At what point, having started in the game of basketball, did you say, now I think David Craig has arrived, in terms of seeing that you are actually meant for the sport?
Well, honestly, I remember when I was 13, I went and I did some trials for an under 18 Eastern Ekurhuleni team. And the coach told me, listen, dude, you're really, really, really good. And for your age, you're exceptional. But we're not going to take you because you're too young. However, we are going to send you to the Gauteng trials, which are taking place in another area of Gauteng, and you're going to play with the kids your age and you'll fit right in. So then, when that happened, and then going from there to playing Gauteng with, some people I still keep up with today, that was my introduction, because that was when I was first put onto a national scene, because we went from there to playing into provincials, and it just continued to elevate from that level.
We are talking to David Craig. He played in the United States of America, in Germany, and he also played for MBB in South Africa and has now joined the Johannesburg Giants. It's going to be exciting to find out what we can expect in the upcoming edition of Basketball Africa League BAL6. Let's talk about your trip to the US. If not mistaken, you were still in grade 9 at the time.
Yeah, so I had just completed grade 9 in South Africa. And then I went to Botswana to play for South Africa in Region 6 games. And then it was while I was there, actually, that I found out I was going to make the move. We had gone through the application process, but, I mean, when you're that age, you're kind of... It doesn't hit you yet. The realization didn't really sink in. So then I got the news, I got back home, and now all of a sudden, you're a 15-year-old, and you're like... I'm really about to leave my home and restart my entire life with an exceptional amount of pressure. Because, I mean, as expensive as it is, just being in America, college tuition is a totally different level. So I had to go and I had to earn a scholarship playing basketball. I had to perform. I had to do all these things, which to ask for a 15-year-old is, it's really, 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 really tough to do. It's extremely tough to do. So, with the grace of God, I managed.
And talking about you managing at that tender age, I'm just wondering, what was the setup? Was it a scenario where now parents had to accompany you, or how did it work out?
So, yeah, my parents helped me to move in the first time, because I'd never been outside of the continent before. First time going to America and all that, so... We went on the plane together, had to leave my brother behind, unfortunately. They helped me move into my school, helped me get settled, helped me unpack my things, all that stuff. But then after that, they had to go. So it was quick, but, that's just what it was at the time. So it was a very emotional and a very, very, very tense few days, because you're really just trying to get your feet under you and get yourself established. But yeah, I'm glad that they were there with me so they could help me get through that.
And your first day on the basketball court upon arrival in the US, how was the experience?
It was awful. It was awful. It's one of those things where you only really understand just how deep it is once you're in it, having the experience yourself. I literally stepped foot on there the first day of school, and we had a game that same day. So I didn't even practice with my team prior to that. Everybody's fascinated because, like, we just got this new kid from South Africa. He's very tall for his age. He's young. He's supposed to have a lot of promise. Show up to the game, and then I have a terrible game. I'm just not used to the style of play at all. I'm just trying to get adjusted to my teammates, and I had a terrible game, awful game. I was probably the worst player in the game. And so that was my humbling moment. That was when I realized I had to literally start from ground zero and work my way up if I want to have success.
And I'm just thinking now of mental pressure, but also mental strength. You witnessed an awful experience, but you knew that it was not a cul-de-sac, but just a detour. The turning point in your mind where you say, I've got to pull up my A game Talk to us about that mental situation. Was there any pressure, or it was just one of those where you just needed to adjust?
No, there was an extreme amount of pressure. There had to be. Because when you're a South African kid and you have an opportunity to go overseas, especially when you're of my stature, something that is so rare coming out of this country, you're not just representing yourself anymore. You're representing an entire basketball community. And now it means so much more to you than just yourself. And that was an extreme pressure that I had to deal with because I couldn't live with myself if I had to come home and answer to people and tell them that I simply wasn't able to get the job done. Because then people are going to ask, like, but how? Because you have the heights, you have all the gifts. It should have worked, and that was something I just was never really willing to ever face. So that was a pressure that drove me so much. So what that did, though, is it turned me very much into an extremely disciplined person. I knew how I had to be consistent. I knew what I had to do, what I had to work on. And it was just a matter of putting time, putting consistency, and most importantly is keeping basketball the main priority and not getting sucked into all the different temptations that you have when you're alone in a different part of the world and you get to do whatever you want, essentially.
How did you get to play in Germany?
So Germany came about because I think career-wise, it's a great place to start off. A lot of people from across Europe, from America, from Canada, basically across the whole world, they all recognize that Germany is a great starting place for your career. So I have a really good agency. He had a connection there. And the coach was really interested because he did see me play in the BAL with somebody else that used to play for him. So as negotiations happened, everything just kind of aligned perfectly. I was willing to make that sacrifice because I had already been through so many years of doing that to where it was instant. I just knew that this is what I had to do. And so Germany is considered like the Mecca in a way in terms of basketball in Europe. I mean, everybody wants to go there just because it's so great for your CV. So great for building a resume. So yeah, it had to be done.
Let's talk about MBB. You got to play the BAL Season 5 that happened in 2025. How was the experience?
It was eye-opening and it was amazing. I think because, especially considering how my last year of college went, where I really had to fight for every single minute I got to play on the court, to now step into a different scene where I'm no longer having to sacrifice to such an extreme level. And I'm able to play with people who I can resonate with, people who understand my upbringing, who understand what it's like to be a little bit more of a South African basketball player. And then to step on the professional court, I mean, it was essentially everything I needed, but also at the same time realizing that, you've been given the chance to take that next step. So playing in Rwanda, especially because we got to play in front of like a sold-out stadium basically every game, it was out of body. It was just a sensation that you can't describe. So, man, I have nothing bad to say about that experience, really.
That's the voice of David Craig, a basketball player who's doing wonders. He recently signed for Johannesburg Giants and will be part of the team at the upcoming Basketball Africa League BAL Season 6 that's coming up from the 27th of March at the Sunbet Arena in Pretoria. How is it playing at the Sunbet Arena? I'm certain you've played there before.
Yes, I got to play there for an exhibition game as part of the BAL 5 finals last year. And one thing I'll say about Sunbet Arena is I like how up close and personal the seating is. You can, because it's more like stacked vertically on top of each other as opposed to more horizontally, which means now it just makes that type of atmosphere makes the game more of like a movie, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's, and on top of that, Sunbet Arena, they've done a really great job in terms of the lights, the sound, and all the other type of atmospheric things that they can put into it. So it's really a great experience, and I think Sunbet Arena should be rocking this time around. I mean, we're the hosting team, and we're playing on opening day. There's a lot of hype around us because we're now doing this as a team that's basically all South African. So there's a lot more that's on the plate this time around.
How is it playing in that center position?
It's definitely very different from all the other positions, just because your role is a lot more defined than, say you're small forward or shooting guard and your point guard. I say it's between the center and the point guard in terms of having two specifically structured positions and roles in the team. But even then, because of the way that modern basketball is going, the point guard is now developing into more of a scorer than what has traditionally been known as an assist, like a playmaker, somebody that gets assists and somebody that doesn't really look to score first. But being a center, it's mostly stayed the same, except now you have a little bit more freedom to shoot the ball and things of that nature. But main job is to be a defensive anchor, rim protector, rebounder, finish inside, and then if it allows you, if you have the ability to, then to do other things like step out and shoot mid range and make good passes and things like that. So although the center position has evolved, it's still the foundation of it is the same, whereas other positions have kind of changed in that way.
And let's talk about your first day joining Johannesburg Giants, walking into the court for the first time. How did they welcome you?
Well, I think it wasn't that much of a grand welcome or a surprise, just because, a lot of those guys I've already known for quite some time. So it was really easy for me to gel with them in that way, which is good because team chemistry is going to be very important for this upcoming BL. If you look at the teams that won in the past, they've already had a really good structure and team chemistry. So that put me in a step forward in that sense. So it was a great welcome, obviously, just to be around the guys and to, get back to doing what you love and doing it on a professional level. But honestly, it was really easy to gel with the guys. I knew a lot of them, and I think that's the nice thing about being back home is that there's not that culture shock. There's none of that, cultural indifferences that you kind of have to navigate around. It was very straightforward.
What can we look forward to come the first match between Johannesburg Giants and the team you will be playing in this upcoming edition of the Basketball Africa League?
We're going to play with a lot of passion. I think that we have a younger group of guys and, teams that played in the past. We have a different level of pride from a national perspective, just because even the imports that we're signing, they have South African nationality, so we understand just how big of a privilege it is to be able to represent on that level. And so obviously with that, there's going to be an extreme amount of passion.
Cape Town Tigers played in the Basketball Africa League. MBB played in the Basketball Africa League. Now it's time for Johannesburg Giants. You know all these three teams. What are your thoughts in terms of the quality of players that they have?
For Joburg Giants. So I think this is the thing that this is the key differences I can say between all three, and I'll bring it back to Joburg Giants. Cape Town Tigers was mainly import based. They brought in some star players from the US, and then the system was mainly built around them, with local players kind of subsidizing that with some role playing minutes and that, except for obviously a couple guys like Sam Kilotele and Ngosinathi Sibanyoni. But then, once they had their round, then came MBB, where we start to see, it was a bit more of a balance, but there was still some of that imbalance just because, yes, we did bring in some imports. And when I was with MBB, they came in pretty late, and then they changed the structure of how MBB was originally doing things. And now we see with Joburg Giants, there's going to be a lot more consistency just because the imports that we are bringing in, they're coming to a system that's already been built, as opposed to the system now accommodating them more. And so, in that sense, we will see a lot more continuity from, those that wants to run to BL in terms of how we're going to play. I think now it's just adding a few pieces and maybe some slight adjustments. But overall, I think we'll be a lot more structured than in games past.
The Basketball Africa League, the quality of basketball, the brand of basketball being played there. How do you compare it with where you've played before? You've played in Germany, you've played in the US.
So I think if I compare it to when I was playing Division One, it's very coach dominance and it's very system dominance. Just because that's the same team for each team, and they're around from the moment that preseason starts in May through to when the beginning of the season starts in the end of October, and then through to the end of the season in March. So what you see is the coach really gets to influence the players at the Division One level and really gets to define people's roles. And then when you compare that to the BL is more teams bring in players, and then the talent more defines what the system is going to look like. Whereas at D1, coaches get to handpick the players based on how they want to coach. So I'd say that's the main difference. And then comparing the BL to Europe, I'd say that Europe is a bit more skill reliant, whereas the BL is a bit more reliant on the athleticism. Obviously, Europe known for its skill, and I think just overall how they play as a system, how they play together, their philosophy is more just based on sharing the ball, playing together as a team, knowing actions, knowing how to make reads. BL is a bit more of, where do you have your advantage from a talent perspective? So I'd say those are the main differences.
When last did you have a good game?
I think it's the last game I played in Germany. I was just very efficient with my minutes. I was very dominant. I think I dunked on 2 people one possession. I dunked on one guy another. Had some good rebounds. Finished around the rim. I mean, for me, I'd like to say I'm a pretty consistent player. So there's not a lot of games where you're gonna find me just completely slacking off unless something is clearly wrong.
Wow. And as we wrap up this conversation, your message of support to a potential basketball player, an African child listening to this conversation, but they are not certain which sporting code to go with. Perhaps basketball could be theirs.
Basketball is one of those sports where it can really be everything that you want it to be, as long as you put the work in. Basketball rewards hard work a lot more than other sports where, it's more just carved out in terms of resources and facilities. Like cricket, you need to have resources for bat, ball, pads, gloves, this, that, the other. Wickets, somebody to bowl to, this, that, the other. Basketball, you need a ball and you need shoes. And the world is yours. So if you can make it a lifestyle, if this is something that you can put your head down and work at each and every single day, you're almost guaranteed to put yourself in a great position for success. Whether that's just getting a scholarship, whether that's a professional opportunity, there's no telling. There's really no telling.
In terms of healthy diet, what's on your table?
So, yeah, I have a nutritionist, and I think she put together a great plan for me. For me, obviously, I'm just very, very, very active, and at my size, you can only imagine how much energy that consumes, right? So making sure I'm getting in the right amount of prescribed carbohydrates, making sure I get enough protein, obviously, but then also things like fiber, omega-8 oils. You need to also get in a good amount of magnesium to help yourself recover. Vitamin C is also very good for recovery. And then, just making sure that you stay hydrated and also get enough electrolytes. I cannot stress that enough, dude. When I get done with practice, I am drenched in sweat from head to toe. So getting at least a gallon of water in per day is a must.
Tall as you are, when you go through the door, you've got to bend. Is it an inconvenience?
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you deal with it so much, you just get used to it. And now I feel like if I don't bend through doors, it's going to be another unfamiliar feeling I have to get used to again. So, yeah.
Wow. David Craig, thank you so much for pulling through to Africa at Play. Your parting shot?
One thing I'd say to all the kids listening out there, if basketball is something you want to do, make it a lifestyle. Do not cut corners. Do not think that the game's going to be given to you. Just grab it with both hands and do everything that you need to do in order to make it a success if this is something that you really want.
How far do you think Johannesburg Giants will go in this edition?
I'd say anything less than qualifying for the playoffs and making a run at the championship will be a disappointment for sure. So I'd say we definitely qualify and we compete. There's no guarantees once you get to that stage what can happen, but we definitely got to qualify.
So you speak good English. Today you've got an opportunity to learn a little bit of Zulu. So I will say Africa at Play, and you will say Asideleli siyashaya. You got that?
Kodwa ayazi ukuthi ngiyafuna isiZulu mfethu.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so ngiyasikhuluma.
So it's going to be easy to say Asideleli siyashaya.
Yeah, Asideleli siyashaya.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Africa at Play.
Asideleli siyashaya.
There you have it from David Craig. There's nothing that will stop you on the basketball court. All the best with the BAL 6 edition and anything beyond the BAL 6 edition, and continue to be that good player that you are, because you're an inspiration to a lot of players on the African continent and globally.
Thank you so much.